Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Mang, president of CSA. I'm going to try and be as quick as I can because I know everybody'd like to get to the refreshment part of this meeting. It certainly is the most fun part of the meeting. But let's start by calling the meeting to order and verifying the quorum. Mr. Ostergaard, do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. There are no motions to present for membership approval today. The minutes of the 2012 annual meeting have been approved by your CSA board and are included in the 2012 annual reports. They have been mailed to the membership. However, copies are available at the sign-in desk and can be viewed on our website as well. Nomination committee. We have two nominating committees at CSA. One is for the Class A directors, residential property owners. That committee is going to be chaired by Charlie Ryan, who you just heard. Mike Hellman also on the committee, and myself. On the commercial side, the Class B directors, John Trunk will be the chairman of that committee. Don Sigmund and Mark Yarborough will also serve on that committee. We also have nomination by petition. The candidates can be nominated by fulfilling the following requirements. For Class A, residential property owners, 50 valid signatures on a petition. And to be a valid signature, it can't be a husband and a wife counting as two signatures. That's one signature per household. So it's 50 valid signatures. For commercial, they have a separate entity, and they require 3 votes from commercial operators. You also have to be willing and able to serve. That's a mouthful, believe me. The willing part actually does require a little more time than most people realize. And the able, we think everybody in this community is able. Nominations have to reach CSA by September 1st of 2013. I'm now going to turn the meeting over to Carrie Kelly to give you the Executive Vice President update on CSA operations.
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out this afternoon. And right out of the gate, I need to dispel a rumor. I do own this suit. It is not a rental. What I want to touch on this afternoon is just briefly some of the things that we've accomplished in 2013 on behalf of the community, under the direction of the boards and the committees, and some of those things that we are going to accomplish in 2013. On the maintenance side, we've completed the renovation of the Tower Beach restrooms. We've received a lot of good input in regards to how that project turned out. Common area maintenance, besides some of the clearing and cleaning out of some of the underbrush between bike trails and roadsides, we've also worked with some of the POAs to improve some of the common areas in their respective neighborhoods. Those include Sprunt Pond, the Beach Lagoon, and Greenwood Forest areas. And we have a couple of others that are in the process now of bringing plans to the Landscape Maintenance Committee and then to the board for their approval. So we are making a lot of progress in those areas, working with the POAs through these standing committees. Another thing that we have done, or we've begun, that we need to finish, and it's going to take us a while, is the painting and screening of all the utility boxes. This has been an issue since I think they started designing and putting in utility boxes. So we've really working at that. It's an ongoing process, and it's going to take us some time, but I think it's been well received. The Greenwood Gate landscaping, that project has been complete, and we've also received some very good input in regards to how that project has turned out. There's going to be some other things in regards to signage and possibly some road markings that will be done at the gate to try to help with some of the traffic issues that we normally incur following Memorial Day and through the summer. Those will be forthcoming. On the safety and security side, you saw, if you were out at the tournament, you saw the bicycle patrol officers. They were very well received. They did a phenomenal job. They were an added element for us during the tournament. And as I'm sure you can imagine, the event in Boston created some challenges midweek for us that we had not had to deal with previously, but working with, in a collaborative effort with local law enforcement, state law enforcement, Coast Guard, and our own security staff and our contractors, we implemented some enhanced security measures. I don't think anybody noticed, and I don't think we impacted anybody's enjoyment of the tournament. So it all turned out very well. It's unfortunate we have to do that, but I guess that's just the times we're living in. Also on the safety and security side, we have ordered, and we should have this month, our first hybrid vehicle. We're basically taking the fleet of vehicles we had been using, and we're putting those aside. We're going to get more fuel efficient. Quite frankly, we don't need Crown Victorias because we're not chasing anybody down at high rates of speed, okay? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So we're going to get a little more efficient in that area, and hopefully you'll see that here in the next couple of weeks. On the Forest Preserve side, Rice Dyke Boardwalk has been completed. That was a pretty extensive project. I don't know if you've been out there, but that's over 500 feet in length. It's now been completely renovated. It's brand new. It's a nice addition or a nice improvement in that area if you enjoy going out into the preserve. We've also installed or have in place a wildlife orchard. We worked with the ARB. They were very forthcoming and very supportive through the use of some of their tree funds to help the Forest Preserve Foundation implement that. And while it's still a little immature, in the next year or two, it should be a really nice addition and enhance the wildlife value in the preserve itself. We've also worked on Fisherman's Point to clean up what has been an unsightly eyesore in there with all the boats and kayaks and things laid all over the place. David Henderson and staff have basically built some storage racks. There'll be a couple of more put in place, and we'll move the boats that have not been registered to another site here by the end of June. So, and then at that point, we should have our hands on that and have a nice cleaned area. So again, to improve the enjoyment in the preserve. And lastly, some upcoming events, the annual garage sale, the community garage sale. It just grows in success. This will be our third year. Look for that, and if you haven't taken the time to come out to it, please do so. We get the Boy Scouts, the volunteers, we even had our farmers out there, and the little bit in fees that we charge to rent spaces all goes to the preserve. So we try to get everybody benefiting from that event. We also bring in the local charities for all the goods that are left over at the end of the sale that nobody wants to tote home. We have those folks come in with their vehicles, load those up, give you credit for them, and take them away. So it's really a well-received event, and I expect it to be even better this year. And lastly, our annual fundraising event in the Forest Preserve will come again this fall. Last year was just a phenomenal success. Again, even better than the first year. This will be our third year. I'm going to say this, get your tickets early. Talk to the neighbors or the folks that came out. It was a wonderful event, and we're going to make it even better this year. So if you have the time, mark it on your calendars, because it was a lot of fun. And we're going to really try and drive that up, because it really has been beneficial to the preserve and really has supported a lot of these improvements. We would not have been able to do them had we not had those additional funds raised through these types of events. So I want to thank those who have supported it and encourage those of you that have not to come out this year, because we can sure use your help. Lastly, I also want to thank the committee volunteers and the board members for their efforts. Rob and Bob are right on the mark. These ladies and gentlemen put in an enormous amount of time, always working towards the best interests of this community. And without them, we're not going to get the guidance of staff as to what we need to do, what level of service is expected of us. So I want to thank them, because they've been beneficial and helped me grow and the rest of the staff grow professionally and provide a better quality of service to all of you. I also want to thank the club staff for their support. Greg and his team and the use of this facility has been wonderful. It just gets better and better every year. So Greg, if you're here, your staff, I want to thank you for your help. And lastly, I want to thank our staff. The CSA staff works hard every day, works diligently to try and improve and raise the level of service that we provide to you. I think they've performed wonderfully in the last year, year and a half, and I want to thank them personally for the support that they've given me. I couldn't achieve anything without them. Last thing, I got to thank Morgan Stanley Smith Barney for the social they sponsored that you will partake of when this is over. Again, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Kerry. I think everybody probably recognizes that this is a big plantation. It's like a city. 5,890 residential properties. It's a lot to manage, and there's a lot on Kerry's plate all the time. We're very, very happy with the things that have been accomplished this year. Also, would like to recognize our outgoing board members, Kathy Carter, George Minot, John McLaughlin, and Bob Sowers. Kathy was on the board for quite some time. She was vice president my first year as president, very, very helpful in my transition into a leadership role in the community, and she did a terrific job. Really would like to thank her for her service. George Minot, who really set the stage as head of our financial committee for a new way to approach managing the finances of this plantation. Initiated the investment plans, put some great standards in place, was on the board for 6 years. I don't know how he did it, put a lot of hours in. Every time I walked into the CSA building, George was there. I'd like to thank George. John McLaughlin, the previous president of CSA, also put in 6 years, still serving on committees. Did a fantastic job, worked very hard. And Bob Sowers, who I think was on the committee over 20 years. 20 years is a long time to serve on a board, but he did that, and he just stepped down this past year and was replaced by Mark Yarborough. The 2013 board, I'm just going to ask each of you to stand when I call your name, and you can hold your applause to the end if you want to applaud. And tell you, we didn't want to put everybody's picture up there. So it could have been labeled as the Rogues Gallery of CSA, so we were a little concerned about doing that. But residential representatives, David Borghese, who is currently chairman of our finance committee, Angie Greenfield. Angie's here, I believe. Yeah, Angie's not here on crutches or anything, so you don't have to stand, Angie. Mike Hellman, who is not able to be here today. Mike Jordan, a new member of our board. Joe Kernan, a new member of our board. Ken Lauer, who you just heard from on communications. Myself, Charlie Ryan, who you just heard from on the land monitor, is vice president of CSA, and Chris Widnell. Commercial members, Mark King. Mark manages Sea Pine Center along with other commercial entities in the plantation. Don Sigmund, who owns and runs the South Beach Racquet Club and the bike facilities down there. John Trunk from the general store, and Mark Yarborough, who does marketing work for South Beach. All the members of our commercial side. Carolyn Adams, a real estate agent with the resort. Steve Birdwell, who couldn't be here. Carrie Corbett, who I think everybody in the plantation knows, or should if they don't. And Craig Ostergaard. Craig has been the secretary of CSA. These people have done a fine, fine job, and it's been a pleasure to work with all of them. Some quick overviews regarding CSA. I'm going to start with the financials. David Borghese will give you more detail in his overview, but I'm just going to hit the high points because they're the first three things I always look to. So how did we do? We improved our revenues by $114,000 over our budget. Most of that was driven by gate fees. Outstanding expense management. During the middle of the year, we felt it was imperative that we get conservative on our expense management. We saved $322,000. That's a total of $446,000 in improved performance against our budget, and we increased our infrastructure reserve fund by $1,141,000, the largest sum ever. I've long believed that it takes one thing to be successful. It's called staying power. Staying power comes in two forms. The first one's financial staying power, and we are well on the way to establishing strong financial stability in CSA. And the second one is the management, and having a management that knows how to sustain strong viability in the future. And we're very happy with our performance. Our management performance as is reflected in the numbers. Dredging, everybody always wants to know about what's going on in dredging. It's been pretty quiet of late. The permit request has proceeded in a very positive way. Thanks to Tim Scott, our newly appointed senator and formerly elected representative, Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley, all of whom were here for the Heritage and expressed their support. We expect to commence work in November of 2013. We're really hopeful that that permit will be issued and approved in the very, very near future, and that we'll be moving forward with our dredging efforts. Carrie did touch on a number of security issues. I'll just hit the highlights. In June of this past year, we undertook a complete evaluation of our security operations. We have implemented, as a result of that audit, a number of new initiatives. I'm sure everybody in this room is well aware of the speed limit initiative, and it's one of the initiatives where we did go out to the community. We did ask for input from the community. We had a very healthy amount of input, I think 80-some suggestions. Of course, everybody's concerned about the speed limit on their own street, but we think that we finalized a speed limit plan that makes a lot of sense for this plantation, will smooth out the flow of stop-and-go traffic, and will improve the safety. We have a lot of congestion here. It gets particularly bad in that 10-week summer period that was mentioned earlier when we talked about the beach club. A lot of bicycles in here, trolleys running around, and a lot of cars and visitors who don't know exactly where they're going. So we think the new speed limit program, once it's approved by the Sheriff's Department here, which has not happened in 20-some-odd years, will be beneficial to everybody. Kerry mentioned the bike patrol. He mentioned the new fuel-efficient vehicles. We're looking at new uniforms to make our security officers more comfortable in their job, and to do something that distinguishes us from the state troopers. And new policies and procedures in accordance with SLED requirements, which is the legal department of the state. Most important is very soon we will announce the hiring of a new director of safety and security. We went through a very extensive process with a search that got 79 or 80 applicants, went through the process of delineating that down to less than you could count on both hands number of people who were highly qualified, brought those people in, put them through extensive testing, got down to a couple candidates, evaluated them even further, probed them, and we are about to make an offer to one of those candidates. We think he is an outstanding choice, will fit very well in our plantation, and will provide great new leadership for our security and safety efforts. With regard to the coffee litigation that's sort of looming out there, not a lot to report other than in April, our attorneys who are representing us, CSA and our collective insurers, filed our appellate briefs. We do expect this to be a lengthy process. Appeals always are. But our counsel expects a much better outcome upon review by the appellate courts. That's about really all I can say about that. We think that the attorneys that have been retained by our insurers and the attorney that has been retained by us and paid for by our insurers have done an outstanding job of preparing for the appeal process. In 2013, and this is in your annual report, we have 4 major priorities here: maintain a sound financial structure, provide a superior level of community services. I like to say that the S in CSA, that big S down there on the sign, does stand for service. Maintain an informed and involved community. I think you can see from the efforts of Ken Lauer and the ASPO team and the staff that we've made great strides there, and provide superior amenities to our residents and guests. Many of the initiatives that the resort is adopting and many of the things that we talk about in our meetings have to do with the upgrade of amenities and providing great services to our guests. Lastly, we are in the initial phase of developing a 5-year strategic plan for CSA. We've done this before. The last one was done a little over 10 years ago. And Michael Tucker, who I know is here, I saw him walk in. Michael, where are you? Will you stand up or raise your hand? In the back of the room, is undertaking that initiative. Michael's been here for a few years, comes with a great background in doing this kind of work, has been reaching out to the community to get input. And you'll see a lot more of Michael in the next several months because we'd like to get this initiative completed by the end of this year. With that, let me introduce David Borghese. He'll give you a quick overview of the financials, and then we'll close out the CSA meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. The CSA's 2012 financial statements, the 2013 budget, and a written financial report are all included in your annual report. Many of you have picked these up today, and I think they will be mailed if they haven't already been received in your mailboxes. Bob has already given you some of the financial highlights, and I don't think I'll go into that because I think the financial information speaks for itself, but I'd be happy to answer any questions on the contents of this information on the Q&A session that follows. However, I do have a few brief comments. CSA's 2012 financial statements have been audited by our accounting firm of Elliott Davis. They have been our auditors for the last 3 or so years. Their audit report, their opinion that is the same as it's been in the prior years. Essentially, it is a clean report with respect to the CSA financial statements. There is a very technical exception that we do not consolidate the forest preserve, foundation, and the cemetery, which would be required under U.S. general accepted accounting principles, but we believe that since CSA has no call on their assets, it would really be more misleading than helpful to consolidate those two entities in with CSA. Copies of the audited financial statements are available. We have copies if you care to receive one. I'd like to talk a little bit about some changes that were made to the content of the material in the annual report. We have presented the financial statements in a summarized manner, the objective making that information easier to read and hopefully more comprehensible, if you will. Additionally, the written report more closely follows what we call an MD&A, a management discussion analysis, which is a requirement for publicly held companies, and I hope that you find the written report to be more robust and more informative. Finally, the 2013 budget is now presented such that the particular line items of the budget match and are comparable to the content of those items in the 2012 financial statements, making comparisons between the 2013 budget and the 2012 results much more meaningful. As you know, I'm newly elected and been on the job for about 4.5 months, so number one, I would like to say how much I appreciated George Minot's assistance in getting me up to speed. I'd also like to recognize the Finance Committee, and in particular Neil Fennell, who's the co-chair of the Finance Committee, for really providing some very steady and excellent counsel. The Finance Committee is hard at work, and one or more of the members of the Finance Committee will be on the Long Range Strategic Planning Committee. Additionally, during the year, we have implemented procedures to forecast year-end results on a monthly basis, taking into account the 2013 budget, interim results, and any known or expected changes in the assumptions used to create that budget. This will allow the Finance Committee and your board to understand the ramifications or impacts of any needed or desired deviations from the budget. As an example, CSA, while being a taxable entity, has not paid taxes over the last, I don't know really how many years. But we are engaged in a forecasting project such that we will be able to determine, based upon the forecast, where we might stand at the end of 2013. And I'm pleased to report that based on preliminary analysis, we do not believe we will have a tax liability for the current year. We're also in the process of implementing a monthly cash flow forecast, which will take us to the end of the year. But on a monthly basis, that will allow the Finance Committee to better make investment decisions during the year. Also, we are in the process of investigating the possibility of implementing an enterprise risk analysis, a project that was approved by last year's board. I believe that was during the November board meeting. To date, we've already started an implementation by having a national insurance broker, not our current broker for our placing our current insurance, but a different broker of national reputation to actually review CSA's determination and handling of insurable risks. Further, the Finance Committee has identified a qualified consultant to assess other risk areas. We have received a schematic of the process and a statement of work that will be vetted by the Finance Committee in the near future. In the meantime, we will be focusing on the value for cost relationship before the Finance Committee really gets into making any further decisions. Thank you for your attention. Bob?
Thank you, David. Very good report. I appreciate all your hard work and really how fast you got off the learning curve as new to the board and new to the Finance Committee. I think David found out that the honeymoon period was over on January 2nd, and he started his term on January 1st. But David dove into the work here as soon as the election results were completed and has really done an outstanding job of leading this committee. Really appreciate the work you've done, David. In closing, I'd really like to thank all of our property owners, especially the property owners who opt to serve on our committees, for their committed time and their energy in working on these committees. The way CSA functions as the entity that provides services to the community is largely dependent on the feedback we get from the major committees and the direction we get from those committees. And while the committees really don't have the authority to make decisions, those decisions have to happen at the board level. Those committees make recommendations that are taken very seriously at the board level and vetted at the board level and are the basis for all of the initiatives at CSA. We'd like to thank everybody in the community for their valuable input. Rob said earlier, sometimes he doesn't agree with people on the board. And sometimes we don't agree with some of the things that comes in from the community. Sometimes we do. But we take everything, and we take it seriously, and we review it, we vet it, and we try to make the best decisions possible that are in the best interest of the community. Our board and staff works tirelessly for this community. You don't see it because they're sort of transparent to all of this, but the behind-the-scenes work that's done, the stuff that you just would never even imagine that's done at 2 o'clock in the morning or at 6 o'clock in the morning by our staff is really terrific, and they do a fabulous job. I'd like to thank our staff. With that, when we adjourn, we'll move to a Q&A period. Do I hear a motion for adjournment? Second? Anybody opposed? The motion carries.